Welcome, welcome. This is just a special time of year. Not just the holidays, but the time we get together and really think about somebody, some little ones beyond ourselves. And so I think it always, for us, brings us great joy. It was one of our staff guys who said years ago, why couldn't we do something to raise money for the children at this time of year? And, it was interesting how one person came up with the idea, but yet everybody was on board immediately. So everybody here today is volunteer. And we really appreciate not just them, but all of you, because this is all about Toys4Tots. And it's all about really giving. My mother always said, if you don't give, you only hurt yourself. But if you do give, you help not just yourself, but you help so many others. I think I've thought a lot about that over the years, and I think that's really true. And we also recognize, though, that there's some of you who cannot give. So please watch and enjoy, and not to worry. And if you can give, we put on the very front page of our website, that link, Toys4Tots, will go to Fit to Stitch. Fit to Stitch is a non-profit, so that everything you give to Toys4Tots can be 100% deductible for your taxes. Okay? So with that said, we chose pattern number 1829 because I really wanted you to see, another really goodwill thing that I see done every year is Burlington Coats. I have no affiliation with them, but what they do is they do a coat drive, a warm coat drive. And so I was thinking, well, maybe if we made a coat, we could give a coat away and we could give that free coat. And Burlington has all kinds of places you can go. So we're going to make a coat today. Meghan's Coat 1929. Great, easy pattern. Or we're going to make it easy for you. And then I wanted to show you some options because I actually did some options so that you could, you don't have to make a coat per se. You could do other things with it. So let's take a look at that before we start sewing. Let's take a look at this vest in particular. There's one particular fabric on the website, and it's 3878. It's a Max Mara. And I'm going to turn this a little bit so that camera can kind of pick it up. It's a beautiful border print. And so I wanted you to see what I did with the borders, just because it's not only a lot of fun, but I think it's beautiful as well. So I did a vest. Number one, you'll see there. This is $195. That's underneath it, just a black long sleeve t-shirt. I made it some time ago, and I've pretty much worn it out because I wear it so much. But you can see that what I did with the edge of the pattern with the front facing, this is the facing now that's showing, is I put the border print along that edge. If you leave some black, and there's plenty of black, you don't have to be as accurate. If you try to get the edge of the stripe right on the edge, it has to be more accurate. But you've got a little bit of error factor if you use the black along that border. So this is 3878, the fabric. If you look at it, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. So I only used the front facing, and the back. So there's just those three pieces. Then if you'll notice what I did is on the front piece, I put the border all the way down the front so that you get a glimpse of it. The facing is what folds back and you see this portion, but you pick it up down here on both sides. And I thought that was kind of cool. And again, you don't have to do that. It'll take another yard of fabric. So if you do all these little borders, you'll have to get 4 yards over 3 yards. And then because the other thing I did is I decided at the back to use the border print all the way down the back. And I just love it. I just thought it was so pretty. I've seen garments like that and I've always thought, oh, where do they get fabric like that? Well, see, now we have fabric like that. We got to really show it off. So it's beautiful. And again, leave enough black because that center back seam is not straight. And you'll never know it if you leave enough black, because you can see that you just don't look at the differences there. So that's just the back cut on the fold. Cut with a seam. I shortened it 14 inches is what I did, because this is a long coat, and so I shortened it, make it a little vest. I put a belt on it. You certainly don't have to put that belt on it, but I just love what that does, and it kind of almost forms a little bit of a cowl here. But it's just beautifully done. So I wanted to show you that one idea. And then the other idea I wanted to show you is the one I have on it. And I did it a couple webcasts ago. This is it's pattern number 915. So it's certainly not the same pattern, but what I wanted to bring out to you is the fabric is 38.45 that I have on. And it would be beautiful to do this coat with a knit sleeve and a knit armhole. So the whole thing doesn't have to really be a coat as much as it could be a duster or something along those lines. So use the 1929, use a knit fabric, make it just like it is. You don't have to use the lining. I'm not going to line this today because I want to show you how to make it without lining. This vest right here does not have lining in it. And you'll notice at the edge of the facing, and I'll do it today, I'll show it to you, but there's a stitch line that goes all the way down here. And what that's doing is holding the facing in place, because typically the reason you line, the lining holds the facing in place. We're not going to do the lining. So I need some way to hold that in place. And because it's such a large piece, I just stitched all the way down. I did it in matching fabric. You'll just never see it. You'll never notice. But it does give a lot of stability to the front. I also put up some boiled wool, because boiled wool, what we know about boiled wool is it's beautiful on both sides and we don't need any front facing. So to take this jacket and just do it single layer with a fabric that you like both sides, a beautiful wool, boiled wool, a beautiful, it can be lots of different fabrics. Anything that you really like both sides of, you can eliminate the facing and just do the front, the back, and the sleeves. So I wanted to give you those ideas because I see so many ideas on what we can do and the potential with it. So I don't want you to say, oh, I don't want to make a coat, but we can make so many other things. Okay, so today, as we go along, we'll ask questions about this topic. Let's try to stay on topic, if you don't mind. I'm just going to mention that. Everybody likes to stay on topic. And what we're going to do is I have shortened this coat also. I think I shortened it 12 inches. For me, it's like a little car coat length. And I'm doing the front, the back, the front facing. The sleeve is a two-piece sleeve. We'll set it in with tie interfacing. There's no shoulder pad in this. It's kind of like a trench coat sleeve. It's basically the same thing. And no lining. We'll not line it. So I'm going to stitch that front facing down. And then we're going to do some beautiful welt pockets. They're called a single welt. And it's a coat pocket, basically, is what it is. The kind we're going to do. All right, so with that being said, let's get started. The fabric I have on is 38.45, just so we know. The fabric we're dealing with is at the bottom of your screen, and it's 38.36. All right, so let's get going. We're going to start with the first column on the site, and I've got belt loops. I did do a belt with this. I think I have a tendency to do a belt. Even if you don't wear the belt closed in the front, I love to take it around to the back and kind of tie it in the back. That's a look that I would. So I'm going to just do the sides, one side, and then both ends is what I do on a belt loop. And I'll show you why. It's a wonderful time of year, you guys, the holidays. It just cannot be replaced. I think they say it's magical, and I would have to agree with that. Okay, so I've got my two little belt loops. I serged 3 sides, and then on the belt, if you look at the belt piece, the back is on a fold. My fabric was not, without using a lot of fabric, my fabric wasn't wide enough to do a belt on a fold. So I just put a seam back there. And actually I like it to have a seam a little bit better, because when you have a seam, you know exactly that you can, if you have a seam on your belt and a seam on your jacket, which we have both, then you can put the center back seam at the center back of the jacket, and they, kind of know where the middle of the belt is. You could also, if you wanted to, you could put a belt loop back there. Just to cover that seam if you wanted. I don't think a seam is a big deal in any stretch of the imagination. So there's our belt. I'm going to start now with the end. And I'm going to fold it, and you can see what your directions do. Your directions have you stitching across the end. Now what I do is The whole belt has to be top stitched, but you're just going to stitch a little bit of the end because you're going to overlap that stitching. Let me just put it back in here and show you that. I think you can see that. Yeah, you're going to lap the stitching, so you're going to fold this, you're going to fold this, and so what that allows you to do is just pull it up and fold it correctly, and same with the tip. And just when you overlap the edges, you get a nicer edge. If you wanted to press the whole thing and just fold it to the wrong side, you certainly could do that. It's all of our sewing options. I definitely think that when you stitch over the edges, you are likely to get a nicer, cleaner end than when you try to press it all. Alright, so that's the first part there. If it doesn't come out like you want it to, don't just take a pin and just pull up. And you can see how nice and sharp that point is. And same here, if it doesn't come all the way up, just pull it up with a pin. Because as long as you've got the edges folded correctly, then pulling up won't unfold them. They'll just bring them all the way up to the top. And so you get a nice sharp point on the edge of that belt. And then on the other end, you'll do the exact same thing. So how is everybody? Everybody good? Sewing for Christmas? A friend of mine said they were making pillowcases for all of their grandchildren. And that is quite an endeavor because she has quite a few grandchildren. I haven't figured out for my children what I'm going to do, if I'm going to make anything. I don't think it was last year, but I think it was the year before I did those cozy bowls. I am telling you, they love those cozy bowls. They love them. Now, I have 4 sons, and I did them for all my sons. Some like them better than others, but that's okay. I do really, truly believe it's the thought that counts. And I really did enjoy making them. So quilters don't realize that they're making darts all along that cozy bowl. That was my most joyous thing, was to make darts all the way around the cozy bowl. Okay, so that's that end. So then what I'm going to do is we put it in our iron pile. I guess we could go iron it now. We'll finish up the belt first before we go into the rest of it, and then we'll have it done. So at center back, I'm going to press this seam. Get a good press there, and then press each end. You're definitely going to have one side that I always suggest comes under a little bit. You know, when you talk about pressing the edges evenly, I don't think I ever try to press them evenly. I always usually press like a right side of the belt and a wrong side of the belt. Maybe today, let's just press them even. So if you just go along for a long period, and if you press under the seam allowance, and then you press the other end to match, if you're not a belt person, obviously you skip this part, huh? I'm going to tuck that thread in, and then this fabric just taking a little bit longer to press. So what I'm going to do is grab some pins and just pin it every once in a while. Do we have questions?
Yeah, kind of.
Can I sew the belt seam into the back coat seam? Oh, like attach it? I guess you could. That's kind of creative. I've never seen that before. You guys know my answer. It's your belt. You get to do whatever you want. But you always have to wear it with the belt. Like there's times I like to wear it, you know, just, it limits the way you're going to wear it. That's not a bad thing. But sometimes I'll take a belted garment and I'll change the belt on it. You know, because a different belt gives it a different look. Like I think this vest here, I love that belt under there. You kind of don't even see it. But if you did a fabric tie belt, you know, self fabric, I think that'd be really cool too. So I think the belt changes up the look. So that's the only reason I wouldn't attach it. But like I said, your belt, at least you wouldn't lose the belt, huh? Sounds like something a mother would do to her daughter's little coat too, to make sure she doesn't lose the belt at school. My mom used to attach things to me so that I wouldn't lose them. Maybe that's my problem as an adult. I don't want anything attached.
Got a question.
All right. See, that's looking so pretty. And we're just going to top stitch that. Did you wash this wool poly fabric before cutting? I did, yes. But it washed beautifully. It did not have any shrinkage. It did not have any color loss. So that was a good thing. I used 3 yards. I used 1 for the body, 1 for the front, 1 for the back and the front facing, and then 1 for the sleeves. And you guys, you don't have to press this ahead of time. I just think it's, I don't know, I think it just comes out better. It definitely takes a little bit of time. Get a couple more pins. So I told you guys it's like watching paint dry, huh? And obviously if that seam allowance is not exact, it's not going to matter. The only thing I would do is, like as I'm approaching the end here, that's the last little bit. I'll show you in a second here. What I'm going to do, because you remember that the 2 ends are both visual, they both are going to be really hanging together. So I think what you want to do, I'm going to put all that, just poke all that thread in there. Hang on just 1 second. And so what I do is I'm going to bring up this end and this end and just put them together. Just make sure that those widths are, you know, the same. If you do this, like I press under seam allowances quite a bit, so it doesn't matter that you're actually exactly right on. What's more important is that you're doing the same amount consistently. So even if you're wrong, as long as you're wrong consistently, it actually is okay. That sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? In stores, I see unlined coats that are beautifully finished on the inside. Are those flat fell seams? Well, I don't know the seams you're seeing. I'm going to tell you just how we're going to do it, and you can, you know, you can do it however you want. Do you always wash your fabric before? I do, yeah. why not sew it and turn it inside out? Well, because it's such a long belt that you can't, it'll take you longer than it took me to get to the ends. You can do it that way. But it's such a narrow belt that you'll be here for hours trying to turn it inside out. And I look at a lot of belts in the stores. I'm going to stitch this just 1/8 of an inch from the edge. And they're done with a seam across the bottom. One edge is folded and one edge. So I have a tendency just to duplicate ready to wear. But you can do it that way. You knew I was going to say that, right? You can do it any way you want. You're sick of me saying that. I got it. Alright, and I backstitched the beginning. I backstitched because there wasn't going to be another. There's nothing over that stitching. And also what I did is I went ahead and took like a sample piece of fabric. I wanted you to see this fabric because it's got a beautiful black edge border. And so you could actually use that somewhere. I did not. I think because I had just done this, and so I thought, oh, I've used enough borders. But this is so pretty. It's such a beautiful trim that, you know, I thought about it, not going on the belt because the belt's horizontal. You wouldn't want to do that. But to take that piece and put it somewhere, it's a selvage, but it's so even. It's just very, very pretty. So I thought I would mention that. When we take photos, I try to show off things like that, like if it has a pretty selvage. Because a lot of times we'll build that into our designs. That's our center back. Isn't this pretty? I mean, it really looks so nice. Wow, Peggy, that looks good. Oops, lost a pin. Alright, so you remember that your opening isn't all the way. There's a little bit at the end. I just do it the whole thing on the bottom. That way nobody knows where the opening is. And you know you can't really tell where it is. There we go. Belt is done. Yay! Okay, and then on the belt loops, what is the weight of the fabric you're sewing on? It's a 4. It's a 4 on our little things. When I do the belt loop, I'm going to fold this side in, and then I'm going to fold the serge edge over it. And so I'm going to make those little belt loops. Remember, I've serged 3 sides. And just grab your thread here to the side. If it's not, you know, belt loops, when you're doing stuff like this, it's hard to get it to start. Just grab your thread and pull the thread, and it'll continue to go. Once you get it started, it's not a big deal, but if you grab your thread and hold onto your thread and just pull it behind, you won't have it stand in one place. And I don't backstitch on the buttonholes because they're going to have, I'm sorry, on the buttons, I mean on the belt loop, sorry. They're going to have another layer come in. They're going to be actually turned under and stitched. They're going to be folded and folded, a little carrier, so I don't think you need to backstitch on the ends, or I don't backstitch because of that reason. But that's 1. This is 2. You just stick that under there. And because you're right on the edge, a lot of times it just won't get started. Just pull your thread in the back and it'll, once it gets going, you don't have to worry about it, but that'll help you get it going. So the raw edge that I didn't finish, it's tucked under the belt loop, tucked under the serged edge. Okay, I think that's our first column. Let's go to our second column. I think that's our first column. All right, second column. What are we doing here? Oh, let's do our welts, French darts, and welts. Okay, so we need the front piece. I think that is right here. I've got my front and my front facing together. Okay, that's my front, and we're just going to do a French dart, like we do on so many other garments. Got it? Speaking of weight, what is the weight of boiled wool? You know, I put that up this morning, and I put 4, almost like a 5. It's 4 is really a stretch. The reason I left it at 4 is because boiled wool is so light that it doesn't have the weight that sometimes when you say 5 does. So I left it at 4. But it's definitely thick. You want something simple so that it won't, just be too thick. But I think a coat's perfect. Or something like this I think would be perfect. Do you sell Teflon foot? No, I don't. This Teflon foot is for the Viking. Every company has a Teflon foot. I just don't like all of them because the problem with many of them is they don't have markings on the foot. And I want my Teflon foot to have the markings so that I can really, make sure I'm sewing straight. Basically that's what I want. Will you have another online pattern making class in the future? I'm sure. I think so. I don't know when. I really love it. I love you all's light bulbs going off. It's just more fun for me to watch. And it's funny because when I first started, oops, I'm not supposed to talk and sew at the same time, sorry. When I first started watching or doing the online classes, I thought, gosh, it's weird because it's just not in person and it's not there. But I really do, in your emails and in your, correspondence, I really do feel and hear you growing, and it's fun. That's really fun for me. So yeah, we'll have one, but we'll wait for the spring, or we'll wait to see what's doing. I don't think we're too premature to announce this, but we're actually opening a store, a local store. We're going to open up a local store in probably March. So that's kind of consuming a lot of my head. It will just be a local place for those who are local, that they can come, but we're just trying to do it. We're trying to think of a lot of fun ideas that we want to incorporate, and that's, like I said, just taking up my head space. Okay, so I'm going to, before I mark the pocket, I'm going to actually start to make the pocket. And so this is a little different than a welt in itself. It's still called a welt, but it doesn't have to be cut on the bias. But you've got your pocket piece, and you're going to fold it in half. And it has a fold line on your pattern, so you can do all that right. And then you're going to stitch the edges. And you're going to do both edges. And I'm actually going to do one pocket, not 2, simply because we don't, you can just watch it again. And from 1, you'll understand how to do it, and then you just hit rewind. Okay, so I've got those 2 ends. You're going to fold right there at the corner. You just hold it and flip. And don't cut anything away. Don't do anything, because you have a beautiful pocket that has stability inside. So you just fold it right on the stitch line and just fold it to the inside. Okay, and that's going to be your welt. And I'm going to put the other one to the side because I'll do that later. And then you have your pocket, and I'll put one, and the other one will go to the side. All right, and so now before I actually do, put it on, I'm actually going to press. Such a novel idea, huh, you guys? I did both French darts. That's the front facing. I end up with a lap full of stuff. Do you guys do that when you sew? Okay, so I'm just going to press the edges of this welt. You're actually going to sew these edges. So if you just press it naturally, I always find that one side looks better than another. So I just let it happen, and then whatever side looks better is the side I put up and the other side I put down. But remember, you are going to be stitching. This kind of pocket is a little bit different than others. You're going to be stitching them down. I really think welts make a jacket look expensive. For years, I taught classes, just jacket classes, and ladies would always say, do I have to put the welts on? I was like their mother. Yes, you have to put the welts on. Once you do them, for those of you, you can all tell each other, once you do them, you love doing welts. I used to tell everybody I had welts in all of my towels in my house. So isn't that pretty? That nice, just beautiful. It's very pretty. Okay, and we'll do the other one. Nope, where'd my other one go? Am I losing my head here? I am losing my head. So this is an unlined jacket. The facing does not cover this portion. If you want to finish the edge of this dart, or if you want to do it on a serger, that's completely your call. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my little welt. I don't know where my little welt went. See, I'm losing pieces. It's right here. I stuck it here so I wouldn't lose it. Okay. I'm going to serge, because I'm not going to line, I'm going to serge the side seams. And the armholes. So these instructions on how to do this unlined are not in your directions because it's a lined jacket. I don't think anything about this is difficult. And I almost think in many cases it's easier to line. The only reason I wanted to show you this the unlined is just to give you an option. Okay, so when you think about a jacket, this front part right here will be encased in a seam. That's where the front facing will sew on. And this portion will be enclosed in a seam. And the shell collar, after I do it, I can serge over it. So that's why I'm only doing the armhole and the side seam for an unlined jacket. I love a serger because it cleans up my mess. It makes me look better than I am. Alright. I see that you have a gather on the back of your coat. Do you just use elastic sewn down or do you encase it? On this I just used elastic. I just put it in the inside. You know, figured out how much I wanted and I just literally pulled it. I didn't finish the ends. I didn't do any of that. I just stitched a rectangle. Okay. The boiled wool is described as a knit. Do I need to add fusible knit? No, this boiled wool is a knit. So you would not want to add fusible to it. You want to use it as a knit. So that's why I wanted to tell you all about the idea of having a knit armhole and knit sleeve with the jacket, because you can switch it up to fabrics that are wintry and yet they're knits. I mean, there's just so many fun options. Okay, so what I want to do here is I'm going to mark the pocket, and I'm going to steal that marking from my front piece, except I don't know where it is. So I'm going to make it up, because I know it goes right along the dart, and I know it's not at the best point. Don't make it up. I mean, actually, you should use the front piece. No, I know where it is. That's why I said I left it. The pocket itself is, just kind of put it on there and see what you like. So you can see there's the waist, and you'll want that pocket to be right about there. Alright, so I'm going to put a pin here, and I'm going to put a pin on this end. And you actually, when you sew this on, you actually sew it this way. And I'll show you that now. Okay? Okay, so we're just, like I said, going to follow the directions. And you'll see that what you do is I kind of put my pins in at points. So use the pins not as a pin, but where it goes in is a point, and where it goes in is a point. Not where it comes out, but where it goes in. And those 2 points I want to make parallel to my French dart. In this particular case, those 2 points are made parallel. And I'm going to stitch the edge of this, and I do want to back stitch this. And I'm just going to stitch about 1/4 of an inch. Next piece, I'm just going to trim all my threads. I'm noticing the ironing board cover is that holes I see in the cover. It is. It is. It's called I Need a New Ironing Board Cover, but actually what I'm doing is I'm making these. We're working on making these as a new product, because I love this ironing board cover. I actually have another one, but I need it for the manufacturer to see how it's packaged, so I have to stick with this one. What kind of ironing board are you using? I don't know. It's so old. I have no idea. Sorry, you guys. Is it okay to make a French seam if I do not have a serger? Yeah, absolutely. You even if you don't have a serger, you guys, you have a lot of decorative stitches. You don't have to have a serger. There really are. Before sergers ever came along, there's a lot of decorative stitches on your sewing machine. I remember the sewing machine that my parents gave me when I graduated from college. If you go way back, it had cams, it had all kinds of stuff like that, where, you could do decorative stitches on all of the inseams. So by all means, you definitely don't need, a serger. Okay, so I'm going to take the pocket piece, and I'm going to put it right sides down, and I'm going to stitch this, starting and stopping in the same place. Just butt the edges up against the pocket flap itself. Now this type of pocket actually does not matter if you sew this straight or not. I hate to tell you that, but as long as you get it close, it just won't make a difference, because it's never going to show. It's not a visual part of the pocket. As long as you stitch that first part on and get it straight, you're in good shape. And then I'm going to show you to the back side. Let me just cut these threads. And I'm going to pull out my pins. And what I love about all of, every welt pocket method that I've taught has been taught to me, and the reason I've passed it on is because I felt like it was so profoundly accurate and so profoundly simple. And because of those 2 things, I've just passed them on to everybody I meet, know, sew, talk, whatever. Okay, so on this, what you'll see is on the front you've got the welt is sewn away from where it's going to go. Everything's going to invert. Is what's going to happen here. And then the pocket is done on the right sides together. On the back side, what you're going to see is 2 straight parallel lines. And camera, can you do a real close up on that, please? Okay, and those 2 straight lines are going to stop and start right across from one another. And I've always said, and I like this, because right now all I've done is sewn 2 straight lines, and if my 2 straight lines aren't straight and stopping and starting at the same place, then don't go on. Just stop, and if you're practicing, wait until you can get 2 straight lines, because you haven't hurt your jacket, but once you put these scissors into your jacket, you've hurt your jacket, okay? I'll never forget, I had a girl in a class, and she had cut her pocket. Anyway, she didn't stop at this point. She said to herself, "Oh, it'll be fine." No, it won't. This is your red flag. If it's wrong, fix it. She said it will be fine. It wasn't fine. In fact, it got worse and worse and worse because the lines weren't straight. And then I did surgery on a pocket that was already cut. And that's a lot harder to fix, you guys, so don't do that. Just pay attention to the red flags, and if they're not right, then don't cut. Okay, so I've cut, and it's in your directions how you cut that little, straight line down the middle, and then you V off. And what you want is those V's to be a little longer, because it's so helpful if they're a little longer, because it just gives you some space to work around. You're going to take this part of the pocket, and you're going to put it in the hole. And you're going to pull it out the other side. And that's all you need to worry about doing right now. And then you're going to take it, and you're going to put the edges right against the edges of the welt. Got a string right there. Okay, so you're going to poke it in, you're going to pull it up here, and you're going to line those edges up. And you're going to stitch right on top of the welt. You're stitching in the same place. You've already stitched there before, but you're going to stitch there again, and what will happen is it'll make it stand up a little more. Don't stitch to the right or the left of that line, because you're going to take away some of your welt. Just stitch right on the same place. And then you're stitching before, and then you're stitching over. It's called overstitching. Okay, and that's actually making your pocket. So at this point, you actually have your pocket made. But you can see my long triangles. I'm going to poke those inside. So that's what you've got so far. And when I look inside, see those long triangles, you're going to poke those this way. There we go. Now don't poke too much, because your finger, everything's not secure yet. But if you notice, see, that's going to get covered up, so it's going to look just really, really pretty, even if it's not perfect. So this kind of pocket is really nice for that. So what you're going to do is you're going to come in, and you're going to look at the ends, and the ends have these triangles, those big triangles that you cut. And I always say leave them like to be 1 inch long. And then what I'm doing now is I'm sewing up the edge of the pocket. And you're going right over the base of that triangle as you come up. And you're going to do it again for the other side, because from the front side you're not going to see anything different. It's just going to be the exact same thing. But what you're doing is you're closing up these edges. And you can see there when I pull that up, there's those triangles there. And lay everything nice and neat, and then stitch over it all. Isn't this fun? You get a beautiful welt pocket, and it's just really, really simple. And I don't think, this is just straight lines. It's just straight lines that intersect each other. And then there's one last step. I do think these tables really help, because they kind of keep everything in order. Oh, speaking of tables, guess what, you guys? They're up. They're for sale. All right, so then what you're going to do is this. You're going to stitch the very edge of this pocket, and you're just going to stitch it like, I'm going to raise that, like right on the edge. And you're going to back stitch that, because nothing else is going to come along and overstitch it, and you want it to be secure. Notice I have not pressed the pocket. You don't have to press it in the process. And I think especially when you have a loose fabric like this, it's harder to kind of press it, and it's a lot of overhandling. I think that's what I see, especially when women are first sewing and they're a little nervous about their pocket. I think they handle it too much, and I know that sounds crazy because you'd think it was the opposite, but I think that's really the truth. Okay, and then I'm going to sew the other end, and then we'll press it and I'll show it to you. Okay, I'm going to do a back stitch. Question. Got some funny emojis coming up. Okay. Do any of your other pockets have do any of your other patterns have directions for this pocket? Oh gosh, you guys, I have no idea. I mean, I think 4200 would. You guys asked me; these are test questions. So also now this is unlined. So if you want to, on the inside, you can go back over and just serge the edges here, just again to clean them up. You don't need to worry about this. But that's what the inside looks like, and then we'll press the outside. Do other patterns have this pocket? This is the trench coat pocket, actually, now that I think about that for a minute. This is a trench coat pocket. It's a coat pocket is really what it is. Anything that's a coat is going to have this on there. Oh my gosh, is this pretty or what? This is the part where you do a happy dance, but you can't stop here. See, look. So this is my armhole. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Woo! Okay, then you do it again. Now the only thing I want to show you is when you go to do it again is the marking of the second one. I'm not going to do the other one because you guys can just hit rewind and do it again. But you're going to put your front together. All right? And then on this side, I did that wrong. Put it wrong sides together. So just put the side seam. Use the side seam as a guide. And what you're going to do is the points that are important are right here at the base of the pocket. Right there and right there. Those are the 2 points. So when you put your pin through there, don't mark the top. That'll automatically happen, but it's the end of this pocket and the end of it here. So that now when you go to do the other pocket, you've got the right angle, you've got those pins right where you need them to be, and you can just do the exact same thing on the other side. All right? Okay. I think we're on the next column. Yes, indeed we are. We're on sleeves. Okay, so I'm going to put my fronts there, and I'm going to grab my sleeves. This is way too much fun, you guys. That's my facing. That's my back. My sleeves. With my tie interfacing. I've already cut my tie interfacing. Okay. So I am going to serge all the way around the sleeve. Now remember, I'm going all the way around because I serged the armhole. So I'm going to sew it in. I'm not going to serge again once it's done. I don't like that. It seems like it kind of mats everything down. So I'm going to do all my finishing before. So when you talk about doing a French seam for finishing, you can do that. But when you talk about armholes and sleeves, it's so hard to do a French seam. You still can, but it's just really... All right, so I've got it all the way around. And because we're only going to do one sleeve, because you guys hit repeat, I'm just going to do one. Just got to make sure I'm doing the right one. If you use a knit, do you use a two-part sleeve? No. I don't think there is a knit two-parts. I'm sure there is, but I don't know that I've ever seen a knit two-part sleeve. If they do a knit and they want the bend, they'll do a dart in the knit as opposed to a two-piece sleeve. I really don't think I've ever seen it now that I stop and think about it. I've done like a knit jacket and done a two-piece sleeve, but that's because I wasn't really relying on the knit for fit. Okay, so on the sleeve again, I serged all the way around the pieces. And I'm just going to put these two together. I always start at the bottom. I think it's a little easier to align the top. I have a tendency to do the front seam first so that I can get a really nice press on it. If you have a good sleeve board, I think it's a great time to use one. I've been looking at one recently just to put on our site. They do make things easier. Okay. And then do the other one. What kind of serger are you using? It seems to be quite a workhorse. It's a Victory, Baby Lock Victory. And I think it is a workhorse. One thing I found is this is the air feed, you know, where you push the little button and it throws the threads through the channels. But because I do sew a lot, those channels get full of lint because they're open. You think about it, they're open. They've got thread going through them, but they're open. And so I actually made a little, I saw my serger repairman, and he had a wire, and it went through and cleaned them out. Now be careful when you do that, but it actually worked. Mine got clogged the other day, and I took my little tool, actually cleaned them out. I was so proud of myself. And you know they're not working because you hit the little button for the thread to go through and it doesn't go through. Now sometimes when you see jackets that are unlined, you guys, all of these seams are bound, which I think is very, very pretty. I've done a couple jackets that way that are unlined. It just takes a good amount of time. It is pretty, it just takes some time. Isn't that pretty? Sleeve is beautiful. Okay, so you could, if you wanted to, you could hem the sleeve before you put it in. I'm not going to. I'll just wait because all I'm going to do on this is to just turn it up and top stitch. because again I did that kind of sampling as to what the thread looks like on the jacket, and the black thread and this particular fabric just blends really, really beautifully. So I've decided that's okay. You could do a slip stitch. I mean, there's lots of options. Okay, I cannot find where to donate for Toys4Tots. Oh, that's nice of you to even ask. Thank you. Go to silhouettepatterns.com. Okay, silhouettepatterns.com. In the middle, very column, it says, what does it say? Current special offers. Thank you. Current special offers. And the very first current special offer, that's where we put Toys4Tots, because we felt like that would be the most visual. So when you click on that, it will take you to the Toys4Tots, and then that page tells you kind of what we're doing and where it is. And then once you click on that page, that's when it takes you to Fit to Stitch. You're leaving the Silhouette Patterns site, so you'll see a bunch of different stuff. Okay? All right. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to insert the tie interfacing. I think it actually is on the next column, so let me wait because I'll follow the columns as they are. Okay? Okay, so at the bottom of this now what we're doing is we've prepared the sleeve, but we're not sewing it in, and we just do the side seams and the center back seams. When you serge the sleeve cap, you lose the notches. You do. You don't need the notches. I'll show you how you don't need the notches. Okay, girls? You don't need the notches. I know you mark them and you take a lot of time, but notches sometimes are important, and sometimes the pattern, it just indicates things that are happening on the pattern. Sometimes they really are important for alignment, but in this case, they're really not, but I'll go over that. Okay, so now you just serge them off. Don't worry about it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is the back. And that is not the back. This is the back. And so again on the back, I'm going to sew the armhole and the side seam and the center back. Okay? And I'm going to do that to both sides. That's one. Okay. Are we okay? Questions? Hey, I beat the questions. How's that? I'm a cutter of serger tails. I hate all the tails. Sometimes even in classes when I'm helping others and they don't cut their tails, I'll come along with my scissors and cut their tails, which is probably really bad. Okay, so now you're going to sew on the sewing machine, and I'm just going to put the two center backs together and stitch the center back seam. And that is a 3/8 inch seam allowance. It is not a straight seam, it's a curved seam. So you don't, I mean, you know, the reality is it's a jacket, and you really could put this on the fold. I think it's just sheer habit for me, but also just I hate the idea of dumbing down, but I don't know. I just really think a center back seam is important. And then I'm going to do the side seams, because why not press it all once you get there? So just like the directions say, I'm going to do the side seams. We're on column 3, correct? Okay, kind of look ahead here. That bottom. I should have serged that bottom. Yeah, I definitely should have serged that bottom. Oh well. I'm going to serge this bottom. Oh, I did serge this bottom. I forgot to serge the one and not the other. I'm going to serge this. So we've got side seams now. It's starting to actually look like a coat, you guys. Belt loops. Well, belt loops can't go until after you put on the side seams. You have to have side seams. The 2 belt loops go at the side seams. Is that what you're asking? I'm not sure what you're asking about. Question mark. You have to have side seams before you have belt loops. Why do you feel a center back seam is important? Does it help with the drape? No. It doesn't help with the drape. It helps with it helps to look nice. It helps with the fit. A center back seam. I'm going to put this belt around my neck, and that way I won't lose it. A center back seam is shaped like a woman's back, and if you've ever made one of our jackets, I'm such a stickler on that center back seam because the back of a female is so pretty. And I think there's been so many times when you take it away that a woman's body looks heavier. You know, we do have that shape to our back. It's unique to females. Men don't have it. And it's very pretty. And I'm always kind of about accentuating that. And also, if you think about it, it allows you to put a sway back. It allows you to put, or easier, to put a rounded back. So I just think a center back seam is kind of like a hammer. You know, I could get away without it, but it's so much better when you have one. I don't know if that's a great analogy, but hopefully you'll get that. One last side seam. I'm pressing them open because both sides are serged. I always start at the bottom because if there's some irregularity, I want it to be into the armhole, not at the bottom. You know, my sewing certainly isn't perfect, but I know where I want my screw-ups to be. And a screw-up in the armhole is no big deal because it's got another piece going over it, whereas if you screw up at the hem, it just is not what you want. This is just beautiful fabric. I mean, it just so reacts to a press and it just really looks beautiful. Okay, so I think with that, we are we on that column? Are we? Yeah, we're going to the next column because we're not doing lining. So we're going to go to the fourth column. All right, and this is what we know to be a shawl collar. So I'm going to put the center backs together. The center back just to help you understand where we're at on the pattern. It's these two funky looking pieces, these two right there. I'm going to sew those. I'm going to just serge them because it's easy, it's fast. You could sew them. In fact, I'm going to sew them. I'm going to sew them. It'll reduce some of the bulk. And this is kind of a bulky fabric. That way I can press open that center back seam. And so let's do that. Let's go ahead and just press it open. Poor camera Brett, jumping all over the place, I bet. You know, in PBS, we always rehearse where I'm going so the camera guys know where to follow. Brett didn't get any rehearse. He didn't get the... What's that? Okay, so now I've got a center back seam. And we're going to sew this center back seam and we're going to sew the shoulder seam. We're going to do a shawl collar. And that is at the top of the next column. I just want to make sure I can see what y'all are looking at so I'm answering any questions you have. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I understand what sews to what, but I'm going to start with the shoulder seam. I have not serged this. I have not finished it. I'm not going to do it on a serger, but it's exact sewing, and I don't want to do it on the serger. I'm going to actually do it on the sewing machine, and then I can show you how to finish it. I'm going to line up the seam I just sewed with center back, right sides together. They both have seams, so it's a very easy alignment. Why did you press the side seams open instead of using the serger to put both pieces together? I think that's a really good question. When you're dealing with a heavier fabric, you can do it either way, but a heavier fabric, you're putting all your bulk either, into one seam. So typically in nicer clothing, the edges are finished and then opened, and that way your bulk is distributed evenly. So that's really just a pattern of how nicer garments are sewn. And then I'm coming over to the other shoulder and I'm putting that together. So my points of pins are, I've got 2 in the shoulder seams, I've got 1 at center back, and then 2 on the other shoulder seam. I'm going to sew with the back down and the front up, because that's the shawl collar, and I want to be able to see what I'm doing. I came in about 5 minutes late. What's the fabric you're wearing? And also the top name or number. Or maybe the top that I'm wearing. Well, the top, both of them are done on webcast. The fabric I'm wearing is 3845. See, I did my little post-it notes this time because last time I kept saying, I don't know. 3845 is the knit I have on. And the top I have on is the tank top, but I've done it in a webcast quite a while ago, so I don't know. I mean, it's 514, but I don't know anything else. Do you use the 3-thread or 4-thread? You should really, technically, you should be using a 3-thread. And the reason I say that is because when you're not joining pieces together, that is when a 3-thread should be used. 4-thread a lot of times puts too much thread on there, but because this is a heavier fabric, I'm just leaving it at a 4-thread, and it's just fine. It's not a problem. But if it were a lighter weight fabric, a 3-thread really would be more appropriate. Can the boil wool knit listed on your fabrics page be used for the entire coat? Absolutely. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to sew this together. Now, you'll notice when you're doing a shawl collar, I have on the directions to clip the corners. Just don't clip until you're actually sewing. I don't think you need to clip ahead of time. A lot of times, depending on the fabric, if you clip ahead of time, the area you clip to just goes crazy being unraveled. So if you just, kind of know where it's going, and then just prior to getting to that place, then put your little clip in, I think it will, for the most part, just works so much better for you. Sew it right to that clip you see right there. I'm going to leave my needle sunk down, and that's when I turn directions. Okay, and so I'm just getting all that out of the way. Keep your raw edges lined up together. And now I'm sewing the back neck edge. I've got the key parts held together. Whoops, I don't want that fabric to do that, so stop. There you go. Okay, so all I'm saying is just, I don't think I'd clip until, I typically, as a habit, I don't clip like off the sewing machine. It's just a little clip. It's only the 3/8 inch seam allowance. And so wait till you're there, and then reach in, clip what you're clipping. It shows you in the guides what you're clipping. It's just has a kind of a close-up of it so you can see really well. Stitch right to that point, and then pivot. And now I'm back to the other shoulder seam. And this is a shawl collar is very easy to do. I think sometimes they can be intimidating. I get lots of questions on them. But once you do them, they're just, really easy. And then you can see from that right side, that point does not have to be exact. Where you want exact is the center back, so it's matching. Okay? And now what I'm going to do, you see all that? Okay, is we're going to go ahead and serge that. That's why I didn't serge it earlier, because now I can just serge straight, and serge straight. And don't try to make it continuous. Just go, and then you're covering all your seams. Apart from the pressed open seams, as you just explained, what makes a garment great quality? Your fabric. Personally, I think your fabric is even better than the seaming, because the seaming is only on the inside, but it's the fabrics. Most of the time, the fabrics that are being used are just extraordinary. They're just, they're the best. I had a conversation. I know I mentioned to y'all we put CD Green, and he does a lot for Bergdorf Goodman in private. And we were talking just off camera about his history and some of the things we couldn't say on camera. But one of the things he said is when Bergdorf Goodman loved his styling, they loved his clothing, they loved everything, but they didn't like his fabrics. And he said, our customers want the best of the best of the best. So we want everything you do, but we want it in cashmere. We want it in, all the nicer fabrics. So when you get into those really high end, they're using just beautiful, beautiful fabrics. Because I am serging this, I'm going to stitch it. I'm going to press it. And when I press it, it's all going to press to the back. The shoulder seam, the neck edge, everything will press down. So we'll start there. And you can see this big piece is the front. This will all go to the back. I think that's why I like shopping, because I just love looking at beautifully made clothing. And it's stuff that people really took their time to do it right. And y'all know Billy. We had Billy on, and she just, she said it's not about completing the garment for her. It's about doing it correctly. Now I'm still working on that, because for me it's about completing it. I love those clothes. But I have, over the years, truly learned a lot of patience. And sewing has taught me patience. Okay, you can just see how pretty that is. Okay, there we go. Okay, we actually have a coat. So we're going to go to the next column. Nope, we're not. Sorry, Benjamin. We're going to go and put the sleeve in. And it was all pressed, ready to go. And I'm going to fold it in half and just kind of give you some notches. Going to give you some notch lessons. You've got one at the top. I'm not going to mark that right now, but you can see that it's the same shape in the front and the back. One seam is lower, one seam is higher. The lower seam is the front, the higher seam is the back. Okay? You can see where the curve starts to change. I don't have a French curve here, but you can see where it goes, the slope goes up and it's concave and then it meets a convex curve. And where those two meet is your notches. That's where the notches are. They do not have to be exact. The underarm seam is bias, so it's going to give and fluctuate a little bit when you go to put that sleeve in. But for right now, let's put the tie interfacing in, and then when I'm setting it in, I'll show you. All right, so tie interfacing, what we're going to do, I've cut my 2 strips. Again, because I'm only going to put in 1 sleeve, we're only going to do 1. But I'm going to come to the notch, and that notch again is just where that sleeve starts to change pivot directions. I've turned my machine to baste. And just give a tug on your tie interfacing and stitch right on your stitch line. Don't stitch at 5/8. Don't stitch at 1/4. Stitch right at 3/8. And what you want to do if you're doing this, I've done it many times, so I probably make it look simpler than it is when you start. It is simple though. It's very simple. Is you want to kind of tug evenly. Try to keep, because what that, I'll show you what that tugging is doing is it's creating the sleeve cap. So you don't want to get too much pull here and not as much pull over here. As much as you can, you want to pull that carefully, evenly as you go. And you can see that that is creating the ease for me. Peggy, is the base of this coat similar? Is the base of the coat similar than that of the trench coat? I don't know. You guys ask me these questions I'm not ready for. I would think so, like the shoulder angle, the dart. Yes, I would say yes. Yes. I did pretty good on that one. Okay, so then I fold the sleeve in half. I'm going to put a pin up here because I've got a side seam, not a side panel. And so my 2 pins there are going to lead to the, that sleeve is so pretty. It's going to be my shoulder seam and my side seam. Okay, this is the front, so it can only go in one side. We're going to find the side that it goes into. All right, here we go. And we're going to do right sides together, and we'll put the shoulder seam there. And I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to put it up on the table so you can kind of see it close up. I'm going to put it that there. So I've pinned the top and the top and the side. Okay, so now what you're going to do is start at the top, just toward the shoulder, and just kind of lay those seams. See how they're curled there? Because, not curled, but they're kind of ruffled because that's got ease in there. So make sure the edges stay even, because when you get away from even edges, one side starts to get longer and one side starts to get smaller. Remember, you're dealing with concave and convex. And when you get to the bottom, you can see that will line up. Okay, then you're going to do it to the other side. You're going to just lay that in there. Just kind of, don't push it, but aggressively just kind of go there. Don't forget to take your machine off baste. I go back down to 3.5. And just lay that in there. So, I probably put 8 pins around the sleeve. Remember that the bottom of the sleeve is bias. The sleeve is bias, the armhole is bias. So I've got a little wiggle room down here. I can't shift the top of the sleeve. That's a section that I can't shift. Because that's the top of the grain and all that kind of stuff goes together. There we go. All right, so I'm ready to sew. I somewhat believe it's going to go in straight. Doesn't matter where I stop and start, but I'm going to put the tie interfacing down against the machine, which is the sleeve portion. And don't stitch any bigger than a 3/8 because again, I'm doing concave and convex. Do I use tie interfacing with all fabric choices for Meghan's coat? If you are using the sleeve, yes. It's not about the fabric, it's about the pattern that you're using the tie interfacing. So if I use a knit sleeve, no. But if I use a woven fabric, you know, there's no reason to change the ease of the sleeve, if that makes sense. These are good questions, you guys. Thanks to my patient operator over there. He's making all kinds of... I wish we had a camera filming these guys behind us.
We could set it up one day.
Yeah, one day we should. We should set it up. Show the real scene of what goes on here. What I have to put up with, you guys, while I'm sewing. Alright, so we've gone all the way around. No problems happen, and we'll look at the outside. Now, you would not leave the basting in. You want to release that because your sleeve will relax a little bit more. But I'm going to show you even on the outside. You wouldn't notice it. It'll still look beautiful. I mean, isn't that just beautiful? Look at that. And every time I put in a sleeve, I marvel at how beautiful it looks. And it's not because of my sewing skills. It's simply because of the method. The method makes it so easy. When you go back and get rid of all these things, you want to press all the seam allowances, the tie interfacing, you'll press it out into the sleeve. You can see how beautiful that is. Okay, so what we're going to do next is we are going to we're going to put the front facing on. I think it's the next column. Yeah, it's the next column. Yep. I'm just going to press this because it's like, because I can't help but not press it. I probably shouldn't really press it until you take the tie interfacing out. You'll see the bottom of the sleeve already kind of goes up, and it's all serge, so you don't have to do any additional finishing. You can decide, you know, if you just want to not do serging, or, you know, like if you wanted to just sew it on the serger rather than serging each piece and then sewing on the sewing machine. Clearly there's nothing wrong with that. I just have a tendency to like the way it looks a little bit better when it's, you know, how I did it. Okay, so we are ready to put the front facing on. Okay, front facings. So what you do with a front facing is you do right sides together and you do the same thing at center back. You did with the shirt. And again, you're really better off, I think, with this fabric to use a sewing machine and do it that way. Now, I'm going to finish off this portion because it's all going to be exposed. There's nothing to cover it up. Again, typically it'd be the lining. And then all this portion here is going to be in a seam, but all of this here is going to be inside. So that's where I'm going to go. the other side. And I'm probably done with that serger. So what we're going to do now is put this together. This will do right sides together. And so I'm going to sew all the way across and all the way down. And when I get down to this section right here, I'm going to show it to you here so you can see it. This is the bottom of the jacket, so I'm going to sew these edges together at 3/8 and it will go into making the hem. Does everybody understand that okay? So you can sew that first, it doesn't matter. Up the side, around, I'm just sewing all the edges. And I think I usually start like at center back and go one way and go the other way. It doesn't make a difference. Whichever way y'all go is fine. Just can't go the wrong way on a one-way street. That's all you can't do. How are we doing? Question. Did you say take the tie interfacing out? No. If I said that, I didn't mean to say that. What I said is you take the thread that you basted the tie interfacing in with. You take that out. You don't take the tie interfacing out. That's what gives your sleeve a little bit of oyster. This is the neck edge. When you get to the edge, you want to go off and then change directions. All right, you guys, we're almost done. This is so exciting. Did you guys see anything that was too hard? You can do this all right. Tell me what seems hard to you. I know you're all going, I can do all of this. Nothing seems hard. Just step by step. And if you put a good movie or a good murder mystery on, it's kind of fun. The other night I was sewing and I was watching the Rockettes. A lot of times when I go to New York, I used to always time it to where I would go to New York when the Rockettes were on, when I had to go in December, and the lighting of the Christmas tree and all that stuff. So it was good memories to watch it on TV. My sewing machine is dying. It's saying we've had enough. Now right there, I just do a little back stitch. That is again where the facing is going into the hem. A lot of times you'd have a lining, but I don't have a lining. When you go to fold these, fold, fold, take to the right side. You've got a couple places where you're going to be doing that. Up on the lapel, you're going to fold, fold, push to the right side. Okay. Look at that, you guys. Isn't that beautiful? Now, I want to show you this bottom. Well, let me do the other side and then I'll show you the bottom. So just another side and then we're done. Because I want to show you a few things of finishing. You figure out where I am. Okay, here I am on the other side. This is the neck edge. Starts at center back. See, my machine just won't go fast. Like it just decides it's tired. Come on, horse. Giddy up, giddy up, giddy up. What's that? I think I could take a nap while I was sewing with that. What's weird, I'm sure it's the computer. You know, I probably need a new machine. This one has a few hours. we don't need to do that. We can just wait. I mean, I can show you without. Let's just show you without. Okay, so just a couple finishing things. All I would do is go down to the other side and I can do it. So I actually go in here and I'll press the seam open. And the reason I do that is you get a really harder crisp when you go to do that. But when you go to press this front facing, you're just going to curl it under just a slight bit. It is not a different size. It doesn't need to be because it's such a small amount. So this is actually what I'm doing is, this is actually the jacket and I'm giving it just a little bit of a curl to the back, to the front facing, so that that seam is underneath. And I'm sure most of you do that. When you go down the front, you can see that it'll come to a certain point and then it'll flip. So for a while the facing is showing, and then all of a sudden the jacket is showing. So if you'll curl under where you get to that point, it's usually around the waist. And then you're going to change. And then right in between that little area, you're going to do it evenly. So you're put at the bottom, the seam comes to the inside. If you look at really nice jackets, you'll see that they do this. It's pretty cool. And then the bottom portion right here, it'll automatically just go right into the hem and you can hem that hem up. So see, that's how the bottom will look. That serged area covers that. And that's where I sewed it on the seam, and that's the back facing. So that's how the inside of the coat looks. And because I haven't done that other side, typically what I'll do is I'll kind of press in between the two sides. So right now I'll put a little pin. Okay, let me show it to you, and then we can ask some questions. And I'm going to actually take this off. I'm going to put this on. Okay, so this kind of comes like that, this goes like that. So this is the section I was telling you to press this part under just a little bit, and then you can see this whole front seam. Right here in the middle, press it even, but when you come up to this side, press the facing on top, but then when you go down here, press the facing inside. So it just kind of transverses itself as you go down the way. That sleeve, isn't that beautiful? You've got your French dart on that side. I should have done it all on one side. I've got the sleeve on this side and the pocket on this side. I don't have it all on the same side. Put your belt loops on the side seams. And then look at that. Isn't that adorable? And I'm going to teach you one little thing about tying a belt, because basically you can see you've got a layer here and a layer there. When you go to do your knot, just off-centered a little. Hey, that's a reason I wouldn't sew the center back seam at the center back seam, because you can't offset your belt. I hadn't thought about that. But you really want to tie the belt not through all the thicknesses. Tie it off to the sides, otherwise it starts to get really thick and really heavy. Isn't that beautiful, you guys? It's so pretty. This just comes up and covers itself. Just needs a little bit of pressing. What do you think? And I got my great pocket there. And it's functioning and it works and it's beautiful. Yay, the kids are going to get some toys. Okay, let's answer some questions. I see some home sewers use sew in interfacing to reinforce the collar. Is that also used in the industry? No. No, I don't think there's any sew-in left anywhere except Joann's. I haven't seen it in the industry for so long. It's all fusible. It's fast. It's easy. Did you mention the fabric on the mannequin behind you? That is that velvet 3501, 3506, 3504. Look right in there. I'm not sure of those numbers, but that was the sew along we did of the Bailey's 320. Did you check the speed buttons? Yeah, the speed, I didn't change anything. I mean, it was zooming along really fast. And I just think the poor little machine is really getting older. You know, when we get older, we don't go as fast. Maybe we need a new belt. Probably so. I'll check all that. Any pointers for adding the lining? No, in fact, actually lining, it's funny to me because over the years, many women have asked me about lining and, you know, oh, I don't want to line it. It takes more time. It's actually faster. Lining is a finishing. And serging is a finishing. They're both finishings. Serging as a finishing, to me, takes much more time than lining does. But I mean, you know, it's not wrong or right. It's just simply what you want for your jacket. But I think lining is just beautiful and it's easy. And the instructions have all of that, so it makes it really simple. When I'm folding in this right here, the facing comes back to here and just literally, I do it from the inside. Just take a stitch and stitch that facing all the way down to the bottom. Very easy to do. Or you could stop, leave a gap for the pocket, and then pick up again. But it's really simple to do, and it's really very pretty. I love the collar. I just absolutely love that collar. Did you say... Oh, you want to move it. Oh, sorry. Got it? There we go. Hang on 1 second here. I pinned that a little crooked at the bottom. Did you say you take the tie interfacing out? No, for everybody listening, do not take the tie interfacing out. The tie interfacing is what gives the sleeve head. You want a sleeve head, even if you don't have a shoulder pad. You definitely want a sleeve head. So what I said was you take the basting out of the tie interfacing, not the tie interfacing. The tie interfacing, if we take a look at the sleeve here, and even though there's no shoulder pad or anything, the tie interfacing is a really nice, and I probably don't have that pressed as well as I should, but it really gives a nice little umph to the sleeve. Do not take the tie interfacing out. Take the stitching, the basting that holds the tie interfacing out. Did you mention the fabric on the mannequin? Oh, the coat you just took off. I'm sorry. I did mention it, yes, but this is that Max Mara. So this is a Max Mara, and I did this pattern, but I just did it as a vest. So I had the shirt on underneath it. It's really pretty. It's very pretty. This is where I showed you on the inside where I just stitched it down. I literally followed the inside where I just stitched it all the way in, and so it holds it in place really nicely. I put the border along the front. Oh, I didn't tell you the fabric number, sorry. 3878. I did use 4 yards because I used the border up the front, I used the border on the facing, and then I used the border in the back. And I just showed that at the beginning. You can go back to the beginning and see that. And you could wear a vest over your jacket. No, that's not true. Sorry. Okay. All right, what else, ladies? So Toys4Tots, this is all about the kids. Our goal is to really, give the kids something to find a little bit of joy at this holiday season. And I think Toys for Kids do it. Okay? They can forget about everything that's going on in life and they have a little toy. And we've heard many, many proof and many, many stories of that. And there's some miraculous books and all kinds of things that really took children from their places they were that were frustrating, elevated them to another place. And that's the goal. I did want to mention the tables. We've got the tables. If you go right below Toys4Tots on that center front page, when you're donating, right below, we've got our tables. So I'm not going to tell anybody for a little while because I don't want a lot of table orders, but we're so excited. The legs are wooden. I'm so excited about these tables. The goal is to really get a great place to sew and to do all that kind of fun stuff. So we're calling them the Table Mate. So the Table Mate from Silhouette Patterns. Look at how pretty this is. Can you see how, it's so pretty. Anyway, what about adding warmth to the coat for winter? Would you add an underlining? You can, it just depends on where, this is the greatest thing about sewing, because I think all of these decisions you can make and make them personal. So for me, I wouldn't, because the coat has a longer life to it, I would layer myself personally underneath. So, but if you're in a really, really cold place, which I'm not, then you might think about putting in a warmer lining in there. A fleece, just something that was logical. And it depends on how many coats you have. Like up north, they have coat closets. We don't have coat closets down here. We do, but we use them for vacuum cleaners. We don't put there's not that many coats. So, everybody's different on where you live. And I think the beauty of sewing is you really can adapt the functionality of the beautiful clothing to what works for you and where you live. Why doesn't this coat have shoulder pads? You always say it makes us look better. The shoulder pads should be under this coat. It's the garment that you have under this that should have the shoulder pads, not the outer layer. So that's why this doesn't have shoulder pads, because it can go over a jacket which has shoulder pads. This is a coat. So by definition, you have a blouse, you have a jacket, and then you have a coat. So the jacket is where your shoulder pads are. They do make you look better. You've been listening. Yay! But the coat, you don't want to put shoulder pads on top of shoulder pads. That doesn't make you look better. That makes you look like you have stuffed shoulders. Okay? So thanks for asking that. But the coat itself doesn't have shoulder pads. Did you use a sleeveless arm for the vest? I did not. Good question. No. I left the armhole like it was because it doesn't hurt to have it lower. The angle is not a shoulder pad, so it doesn't hurt to leave it larger. And I would have room, even if I wanted to wear a bulky sweater under this vest, I had room for that. So I did not change the armhole of that vest. That's a good question. When would you use a lining? All the time. I just wanted you all to see, so many of you have asked me, if I don't line it, what can I do? And so I thought, again, I look at it as more work, but I wanted you to see how simple it is and where you have to serge and where you have to, the changes you have to make if you don't want to use that lining. I think not using a lining is up in our heads. It's so much easier to sew the jacket with a lining than without, unless you leave it all unfinished. I mean, obviously you're not going to see all that from the outside, so it doesn't, you don't have to do all that finishing that I did. It wouldn't make a difference. Okay? All right. Are we good? Got all the questions answered? Yay, ladies. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being so amazing. It is an honor to be able to teach you or try to teach you. And it always keeps me going out and shopping and finding new, which of course, that's like my middle name. So the goal is, even over the holidays, we're going to find great stuff for you and we're going to bring them to you so that you can do beautiful sewing and love what you sew. That's really the goal. So from all of us at Silhouette Patterns, it's time to say happy holidays and most of all, happy sewing. Love you all. Bye.